Hi guys, welcome along to another edition of Off Script Extra Time. Myself, Chris McHardy, and Robbie Greenfield alongside me. We're proving ourselves to be incredibly busy down here. We're talking all things tennis, and in particular Novak Djokovic in this edition. Confirmation this past week that Novak will be returning to the Mubadala World Tennis Championship for a fifth time, December 27th through to December 29th. Now Robert, Novak Djokovic, he is a man that we have discussed time and time again, whether that be on Sports Tonight or off script. You've got a bit of a theory, okay? Now, I'll ask you this question. Greatest tennis player of all time is?
The greatest tennis player of all time is still Roger Federer, Chris. I don't argue with the records. I don't argue with the stats. The barometer of the Grand Slam titles, the 18 Grand Slams, 20 Grand Slam titles, I do beg your pardon, is Roger Federer's, and he has it. I will say that Novak Djokovic is the best tennis player we've ever seen. He is at his best. At his best, no one has matched his level. That is the argument I'm making. I'm saying Roger's the greatest. I'm saying Rafa's the greatest clay courter, that's without question, and the greatest competitor. I'm saying Novak is the best when he's at his best, and that's my argument.
Now, I haven't looked up the definition of greatest, but I'm sure there will be best in there somewhere. But I totally get where you're coming from. In terms of greatest, there's, I guess, a quota of things that you tick the box. For Roger Federer, he's obviously won the most Grand Slam titles. He's got the longevity. He's been world #1 longer than any other male player in history. He's still knocking Grand Slams out the park at the age of 36. Just qualify a little bit more when you say best. What makes you feel, and I'm sure you've got some stats in front of you that will help you furnish this argument, but what makes, in your opinion, Novak Djokovic the best player that we've seen?
It's more of a hunch, in all honesty. When I say
we're doing all of this off the back of a hunch.
When I say it's a hunch, I mean if you said to me in 2019, Novak Djokovic will play Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic will play Roger Federer, gun to the head, on your life, who are you putting your money on? On your life, who are you putting your money on? Novak. I put my money on Novak against Roger. I put my money on Novak against Rafa on any surface other than clay. And even in the French, if you take the French Open away, they're pretty evenly matched on clay as well. And my contention is that at his best, at the two seasons we've really seen him reach the level that I don't think we've ever seen a male tennis player achieve, 2011 and 2015. He's the only player to hold all 4 Grand Slams at the same time in the Open era on those different surfaces, which I think is an utterly remarkable achievement that Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal have failed to emulate. 2018, for me, really confirmed a lot of things about Novak Djokovic. The fact that he came back from the abyss, that he was really down and out, that people were talking, and we spoke not so long ago, even at the Mubadala World Tennis Championships back in last December, we talked about the prospect that Novak Djokovic's career, when he pulled out of that event with injury, could be done. He had a bitterly disappointing Australian Open. His form was patchy coming into the clay court season. He started to turn it around. I think it was Madrid that he started to turn it around. Then he got the result. He got to reach the final at the Queen's Club and then Wimbledon. I mean, that was when we saw Novak back to his best. And I know tennis is decided on the most razor-thin of margins, but in that semi-final against Rafa Nadal, for me, that was two players right at the height of their games. Rafa is the world #1, and Novak Djokovic edged it, not for the first time either. He did it in the 2012 Australian Open final memorably. His performances against Rafa out with the French Open, for me, mark him out as a better player. Now, I know you can't take the French Open away. I know it's important. But when we're talking about the Grand Slam titles, Rafa winning 11 French Opens, that, for me, disqualifies him in the conversation of best all-court player of all time, simply because so many of his Grand Slam titles have come in one tournament. For me, that's the way I look at it. You look at Novak, it's a much more even spread. 1 French, 6 Australians, 4 Wimbledons, and 3 US Opens. And I think he's going to catch Rafa. I honestly believe that in the next couple of seasons, Novak is going to win much more Grand Slam titles. And you never know. I know I get laughed out of the building when I say this, but the 20 is not safe.
It is safe. from Novak, certainly. He's on 14. He'd have to almost get another 50% of what he's won already in order to get past Roger's mark of 20, and that's not to say Roger couldn't add even more in the next year or two. He's not finished yet, and I do question whether Novak Djokovic in actual fact has the desire to go late into his 30s. That will only come, I guess, we'll only find that out as we go. I want to come back to something you said there about in 2019 Novak Djokovic would beat Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer. You're not going to get me disagreeing with that. I think there's an awful lot of people that would agree with that. Roger is now 37 years of age. It wasn't so long ago that we were talking about the fact that any male, any female tennis player as well, once you get in past 34, 35, it becomes that much more impossible to win Grand Slams. Roger Federer has won 3 since the age of 34, for goodness sake. The other stat that really jumps out to me, and you're right to point out, 2011, 2015 for Novak Djokovic. I think 2011, Pete Sampras, the man that I know was your hero growing up, Robbie, who you would probably still argue is in the debate of the greatest of all time as well. He said that 2011 is the greatest year that he has seen in tennis from any player. Novak Djokovic's 2011. It was remarkable how many ATP Masters titles he was winning. I think that year as well he won the 3 Grand Slams. Roger Federer, and I know, I think we live in a bubble where we only remember what happened yesterday as opposed to what happened maybe perhaps 5, 10 years ago. I'll take you back to 2005, Robbie. Wimbledon 2005. Roger Federer won Wimbledon that year. It then started a quite unbelievable run. He got to the next 10 Grand Slam finals. He won 8 of them. He lost the 2 French to, of course, Rafa Nadal. I'll take it one step further. Of the 19 Grand Slams that got kicked off Wimbledon 2005, only once, I think it was Australian Open back in 2008, did Roger Federer fail to make the final. That is not only consistency, that is your very best tennis. In order to make 19 or 18 of 19 Grand Slam finals in that period, all the way through to January 2010, you've got to be playing good tennis. You've got to be playing your very best tennis in order to do that. And consistency-wise, I haven't seen Novak do that.
But then who was he facing in that era, aside from Nadal on clay? Who were the greats of that era? Novak Djokovic came to prominence in 2007 when Roger Federer was in his pomp, when Rafa Nadal, who's only a year older, I believe, than Novak Djokovic, was also cut into his pomp, winning the French Open for fun, getting to the finals at Wimbledon, and developing into an all-court player. I would argue that Roger Federer, in the first few years of his career, and this is to take nothing away from his achievements, but he was not facing players of the caliber of Novak Djokovic and Rafa Nadal. Now, you can twist this whichever way you like, because you could say, well, Novak won a lot of his Grand Slams when Nadal and Federer were on the wane. I am aware that you can throw that argument back in my face. But I look at head-to-head records, and the only player, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's only one player that has a winning record against Novak Djokovic when he's played him more than 3 times. Do you know who that is?
Stan Wawrinka?
It's not. Stan Wawrinka actually has a just drastically losing record against Novak Djokovic. It's Andy Roddick. Ooh. And it's Andy Roddick because we're talking about 2 different generations of player here. Novak Djokovic was a youngster coming up. Andy Roddick was on the brink of retirement, and you know, Andy Roddick had the better over him. Whether he didn't like facing Andy Roddick or there was something about his game. You look at Federer, 24-22, Djokovic in Djokovic's favour. Nadal, 27-25. They're the greatest rivalry of men's tennis. They've played more than any other 2 players in history. And Djokovic is ahead. Now, I know it's marginal. I know it could turn around. It's razor thin. But given the fact that both of those 2 players had a significant advantage in the early part of Djokovic's career, as he was coming up through the ranks, the fact he's turned that around.
Switched, Rob. That can be switched, certainly in Roger Federer's case.
But he's got the record.
Roger Federer's 37 now, so the fact there's a 6-year age gap means that, as you rightly point out there, and you've got to be fair on this argument, if you're saying that Roger had an advantage when Novak was a young whippersnapper just coming up, then by the very same token, there is now an advantage there. The fact that Novak is the younger of the 2 men. So there is clearly an advantage on that front as well. You look at the stats and you say you can bend stats to each of your arguments. You look at the Grand Slams. I think that's important. Roger Federer has made 30 finals. He's won 20. He's lost 10. Novak Djokovic has won 14. He's lost 9. So he's been to 23 Grand Slam finals compared to the 30 for Roger Federer. You've said, and you're smiling there, you've said that you feel Novak Djokovic could maybe one day get past Roger Federer's total.
I
of
appreciate it's a long shot. I mean, I do appreciate it's a long shot. Again, it's down to your own gut feeling, I think. We can all hurl stats about, and there's a lot of impressive stats out there. And the players themselves have said it in the sense that, you know, the media will compare and contrast, and they've got their body of work, and they know that it's the best they could have achieved. And I think Roger Federer right now stands alone at the top of men's tennis, and for good reason. I'm not denying that. I'm not trying to put Novak Djokovic above him. I'm just saying no one's played better tennis. And that to me is more of a visceral appreciation of the game. Watching him when he's at his best, he's like a brick wall. I know all three of these players are absolute all-time greats, legends of the game, maybe the best we've ever seen. We are so lucky to be living in this era where there's three players of that caliber who are all operating at the same time. It's amazing, and we're going to miss them dearly when they're gone, but it's just an impression I get, that's all.
Let me ask you this, whose serve between Roger and Novak's do you take?
Rogers, just.
Forehand?
That's tough. I mean, that's tough.
When it's purring, Rob, when it's a bit like yours, who'd you take?
It's different. I mean, you would say Roger. No, you would say Roger Federer's, but then again, I don't know the stats. I mean, Novak Djokovic has an incredible forehand.
Who's backhand?
Backhand, there's no discussion. It's Novak Djokovic's all day long.
Mental toughness?
Novak.
Interesting.
Novak Djokovic.
Movement around the court?
Novak Djokovic.
Interesting.
For someone who's able to, Roger's more graceful. Don't get me wrong. Roger looks like he was born to play tennis, and we both agree on that. But in terms of court coverage, in terms of speed, in terms of elasticity, it's Novak.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. There's an awful lot in there I agree with. It's the mental toughness thing that I would disagree with. I think Roger Federer doesn't get enough credit for how mentally tough he is because he has the ultimate poker face in that regard. I agree, backhand, Novak. I agree, court coverage, unbelievable, undoubtedly. The serve for me is Roger's. The forehand, when it is purring at its very best, Roger, just. It's the mental toughness.
Return of serve?
Return of serve, you probably would say Novak, just. If you're giving Roger the forehand, but just, you're giving Novak return of serve. Maybe just, and I know an awful lot of people that would have you believe that Novak's maybe just the best returner that the game has ever seen.
Do you subscribe to the Grand Slams as being the ultimate barometer in the sense that do you believe that Rafa is the second best of all time?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I think Novak is where he is. I take your point that 2011 and 2015, but 2017 is an awful lot more than 14, obviously. I'm stating the bleeding obvious. But Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, longevity plays a part. I think Rafa Nadal's injury problems, the fact he's overcome them to remain one of, if not the prominent force in tennis. Right now you can make that argument. I think absolutely they're ahead of Novak in that regard. And Roger, I mean the longevity, Rob. We're talking what, he won his first back in 2003. He won his last in 2017. That's unbelievable. That's unparalleled. That's unrivaled. He's 37 years of age and still doing it. It's a debate we could have all day long. I'm conscious of that. Mubadala World Tennis Championship. You're excited to see Novak back?
Very excited to see him back. Such a shame that he was injured last year for that tournament. Great to see him back in Abu Dhabi. Really excited about the Mubadala World Tennis Championship and the new tennis season, I think.
Venus Williams as well.
Yeah.
They're, I guess, persevering with this idea of bringing two females across. We saw it last year with Serena Williams and Yelena Ostapenko. We're yet to find out who Venus's opponent will be, although I've got my own idea on that one. Venus, though, legend of the game.
And she won't be going on forever, so it's a chance to see her, that legend, in the flesh, play. She's been playing well. She reached the final of Wimbledon last year, so she's been playing well. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see who they pit. I would like to see perhaps a women's tournament evolve from this exhibition match. It was great to see Serena last year up against Ostapenko. Just to see a glimpse of her after so long away from the court, and you know, she's come back, and we all know what's transpired with Serena Williams this year. There's been plenty of headlines that she's generated for all sorts of reasons, but she has made 2 Grand Slam finals as well. So the Williams sisters keep on going, these greats of the game. We're just enjoying them while we can, and we're enjoying the end of their careers, and it's great to have them in Abu Dhabi.
Mubadala World Tennis Championship, we're excited for it. It all takes place December 27th to the 29th down at the Zayed Tennis Stadium in Abu Dhabi. Dhabi. Novak Djokovic will be there. He's not the greatest, according to this man. He may just be the best, though. We'll see you there.